Welcome, welcome. It is the first Friday of the month, and it is time for my next live. Hi, I'm Trisha Broderick, and I'm with Ignite Insight and Innovation. And I know it's April 1st, and you're supposed to make a joke, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I decided that I didn't want to do this month alone, and I was so excited that I've got a few friends joining me today. So let me take a second and bring them on. Hi there.
Hey, Trisha, how you doing?
Hey, Trisha.
So we have Agile Bob and Bob Hartman and Peter Saddington. Do you want to take a second just to introduce yourselves for a minute?
Well, I don't need any introduction, right? It's Agile Bob. But
Agile Bob, right?
That's true.
Yeah, everybody knows me. And everybody knows Peter because he's like the crypto king. So, we don't need much introduction. But the way we know you is through Agile for All, where we all spent a lot of time together and enjoyed learning about agility and all the various topics. And it's great to be spending some time with you today, Trisha. So if you really want me to introduce myself, I'm happy to, but we all worked together. And I think everybody who's watching probably already knows that.
Probably.
Yep, absolutely. I'll just go real quick. That's Agile Bob. I'm Agile Peter on Twitter. And we loved working with Trisha. That's all you need to know.
And likewise, like I was doing happy dances for a number of things today, but I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to just talk at a computer screen. I get to talk to my friends today. And this actually came about. Peter had watched a previous one and we were chatting about it because he does a lot of stuff with video as well. And I was like, well, why don't we do it today? And then I looked at what was on the schedule for today because it just worked out that none of us were training today. We could actually all do it today. That seemed like the April Fool's joke right there. But I looked at it and it was all about connection and keeping and staying connected and helping, especially in this kind of world. And I was like, how perfect. It just seemed absolutely perfect. So that's what we're going to focus a little bit today and just kind of trying to help others with some tips that we do in terms of how we stay connected with different people and on a personal front, but more so on that professional front, and which for me is it really different. But that's part of it. So what are some things that you do to stay connected with not just like each other, but with people you're currently working with and collaborating with on different things?
Trisha, one of the things we created was during the pandemic was we created the community site at agileforall.com, trying to get people to collaborate there and have a place to go to answer questions and things. And so for my classes,
what is
yeah, it's basically a forum board. The goal there is to have some videos and classes and things that they can take as well. But every class that I do over the last 6 months, I've put people in there into their own forum as a group so they can stay connected to the people they were in class with. Because we always get that question, hey, can we connect to each other? It's like, well, I can't give you everybody's email addresses, but if you want to do it yourselves, you can do it. So now we have a forum for that where they can just chat with their classmates, which is kind of interesting and fun. It's also an easy way for them to get in touch with me and stay connected with me. You guys both know I'm terrible with names. You're lucky I remember both of you, but it's because we spent so much time together. But I'm great. I'm great with faces. So I'll see somebody that's been in my class and I'll talk to them years later. I'm like, you were in a class in 2014, weren't you? And they're like amazed that I remember them. And this is just another way to help people stay connected, is having a space for them online where they can stay connected to me and me to them and them to each other. But that's, people in classes. I think the three of us and others that have been working together, we stay connected a little bit via email. But it takes a whole heck of a lot more effort than it used to, for sure, because we're all working from home. And, we used to gather in person every once in a while, and we can't do that anymore. And Trisha, I know that's your big issue.
Well, that's actually been one of my struggles with staying connected, is because I actually got on a Zoom call with somebody I had not talked to this entire time, right? But somebody that I would call a friend and a fellow Agilist, a speaker. And we were both going to be speaking at an upcoming conference. So we touched base and we're like, how is it that we've gone all this time without talking? But there was almost this like privileged luxury of going, well, I'll see them. I don't have to actually reach out because I know I'm going to see them at that next conference, right? And so for so many of those connections, losing that conference really dropped me off the face of this earth in terms of like, oh, You mean I'm not going to just see this person in a couple months, right? Because we don't always talk every single day. And so like that didn't seem weird, but all of a sudden there was no conference to retouch base, right? And that's been hard for me. It's been really hard.
I think
Yeah, it got hard enough for our families. My family did something weird. So our birthdays and anniversaries and things like that, special days, are spread throughout the year, but we have a gap between, let's say, Christmas time and the beginning of May. So we always get on Zoom for these things, and we just have a grand old time for a couple hours with all my kids and my wife on Zoom. We actually created our own holiday. we actually created our own holiday. The second Sunday in March is Hartman Day, and all of us get on Zoom for Hartman Day. And it's just a way to stay in touch every month or two, just get everybody out together. But it is a lot more something we have to schedule in advance and do more of, because it used to be the kids would just come and visit, and now like they could still come and visit, but just the act of going through an airport anymore is like craziness. And I mean, it was crazy. Like I don't know if you saw this, but last week in Austin on Monday of this week, they had people abandoning their rental cars because they couldn't get to the rental car center. The line was so long. People got to their flights 2 hours ahead of time, got to the airport 2 hours ahead of time, and the line to get through security was 4 hours long. That kind of stuff is nuts.
Yeah.
And that's the world we're living in today. It's crazy.
I had that last week getting out of Miami. I sat on the tarmac for like 2.5 hours. Anyway, I think what's really cool about I'm kind of taking it back to what Bob was talking about is we have a really unique opportunity in that we created our own community site. And I think what's really powerful there, it requires a little bit of kind of assertiveness, a little bit of maybe a little bit of technical know-how, and not everyone might have access to that or be able to build something like this. And so Bob and I have a really cool opportunity where we've created our own home brew of a forum. But what I have found, and I think this is contextually relative to what Bob brought up, is what I have found is that there are a lot of classes that we've been doing where they want to stay together and they want to be more asynchronous in their conversation, but they also want to have the opportunity for real-time chat. And so a lot of them are creating Discord groups or Slack groups from the classes. And so one of the things that I haven't floated to Bob yet, but I'll float it right. I'll float it right here. Surprise! Maybe we should just start creating a massive Discord channel so that all of our classmates can have that asynchronous plus the ability to get on a voice chat with each other and really talk and connect. And I think that's really the purpose in the context of our conversation here, is that there really are free tools like Slack and like Discord. If you got a little bit of technical know-how, you can put together a forum or a private board systems or something like that. But there are also great tools out there for connecting, like LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups or even like Twitter groups now or something like this. And so there's a lot of ways. You just have to be intentional. And I would say ask the question to people out there and to your network, like, how can we connect? We've been out of touch. Is there a way for us to connect effectively? Is there a way for us to find a place where we can huddle together and have a safe spot to talk and reconnect? I think there's enough tools out there that anyone can kind of create these types of communities relatively easy.
Yeah, I sometimes struggle with those myself. Clearly, you both know this. Like, I can't handle Slack, like the asynchronous. Like, I want to talk to you, like back and forth.
Wait, hold on. Like, while I was saying that, I was thinking about you, Trisha, and I'm like, none of this shit's gonna like shit. Like, Trisha's like,
valuable to me.
I worked for you for years.
I will absolutely say, like, when we were all with Agile for All, we had this like end of day kind of check-in, that would be prompted on Slack. And I very, very, very much do not miss posting, but I very, very much miss reading that. And because there was an element of like that part of it is just being able to kind of know a little bit about where people are at, feeling that even that slight knowledge. But I do struggle with some of those tools, and yet I don't either. Like, I love that they're there and they're helpful. Like, I'm posting to certain things occasionally, right? But for me, that it actually makes me sometimes feel more disconnected. Like, I like the Hartman day idea, right? Like, what's the reason for me to go out to that Slack channel? I have 22 Slack groups, for crying, not channels, groups, because every conference wants a new Slack channel. Every organization, every client, like, it is bonkers. And every time I get rid of one, another one comes at me. And
both Bob and I were like, what the hell?
Trisha using Slack, and that blew my mind right away. And then to have 22 groups, it's like, oh my gosh.
And it's cool. Like Agile Alliance, I'm going to be speaking at the Agile 2022 conference, and they created a Slack group, right, for everybody to go in there and chat. And it's awesome, but it's one more thing I got to go look at that doesn't necessarily always make me feel like this. Like, I am seriously, like, I can feel my heartbeat right now just because I can see your face, right? Now, it still makes me slightly sad because I want to hug you. And I've told everybody that when I go to this first conference, everybody should just, I'm going to wear a warning sign. I'm coming in hot. Like I'm just like, I am, because for me, that connection is more than just kind of communication. It is that feeling of really like belonging in a deeper way, of like helping me to think of new things, helping, somebody else with things. That back and forth for me is what really helps with that connection level. And that was something I struggled with at the beginning of this, is how do I get more of that dynamic even in a remote world, right? And so for me, I've had to do a little bit more of the happy hour Zooms, or just the connections, or just picking up a phone. And I found that even my texting has gotten less. Not that it was ever great before, but again, it has that same vibe where it's like I'm shooting information at you instead of having a connective conversation. And that's just what does it for me more. So for me, I like trying to actually schedule different things out. Like, hey, let's connect back in. I put reminders on my calendar of things like, hey, connect back in, check in with so-and-so. But it's been harder when I didn't have the other things, that like the number of people I have to do that for now has increased because I don't have other avenues to handling the conferences or things like that until this summer. I'm going for it this summer. I don't know what's going to happen.
You're going to get on the conference circuit. I think what is a little we have a bias here between the three of us, because we're assertive individuals, right? We're consultants, we're coaches, we don't mind standing in front of people and making a fool of ourselves. So
as evidenced.
we're a little biased here. And so I wonder, for those who are not as assertive and as inclined to reach out, but still feel the loneliness and the disconnectedness that COVID has created, I'm wondering, Trisha, have you found any mechanisms or tools or things that can help those that are not as assertive as people like us three, but still also feel the lonely kind of island thing that's going on? How do people like those engage and get out of those, that funk when they're not as assertive or not as gregarious like you are?
Right.
I've thought about it. I wonder.
From what I've seen with different things, and one of the things that this has actually made me, I mean, this might be taking us slightly in a different direction, but I was super happy about it, is like, there's so many times that people will go like, oh, an extrovert needs people. Introverts need people too. Like, it's not a matter of like, oh, they're a hermit and right? Like, it's just how they regain energy is different. I'm actually thinking like my next conference or my next big assertive, like loud event, I'm going to have to like crawl in a hole myself too afterwards, which normally wouldn't happen, but I'm going to be tired. Right. So I think there's an element of, I think this is actually drawn out more of just that connection, right? Is that at the end of the day, whether you're loud, you're quiet, you're assertive, you're extroverted, you're introvert, regardless of what those is, people still need connection. It's just what kind of connections, what levels of connections, with who do they need the connections with, varies, and really trying to honor that. Like, I mean, both of you can attest to this, and others that have been at a conference. Like, I try to be super inclusive, like anybody and everybody, come on. And I'm finding myself going, oh, there's a couple people I really miss. And that kind of stinks that I feel like that. Like that I'm like, I really want to make sure I have a lot of time with this individual instead of being really wide open. But it is that realizing which connections kind of filled me up a little bit more and wanting to spend that time there. So yeah, there's probably different tools and different things, but I think it still comes back down to that connection and just how do people want those connections. And no matter who you are, we're human, right? And we want that. It's just maybe done in different ways.
I am definitely on the more introverted side of the spectrum than either of you. I think we can safely say that. And some of the things that I found that have worked for me is you really have to work at maintaining your friendships, because it's easy to drift away and only touch base less and less and less. And so really figuring out for yourself, who are the key important people that I need to be in regular contact with, and do they share that with me? So that was one thing that I had to do. And I'm fortunate enough to live in a neighborhood where I can get that in my local neighborhood. It's the first time I've ever lived on a block where I know more than 4 of my neighbors. So I know like 25 to 30 people in my neighborhood, which is great for me personally. On a professional level, I've started to use other tools that I used for the business now for me personally. So I use SaneBox, which allows me to send messages that will come into my inbox in a future date. So I send myself a message that says, by the way, call so-and-so or set up a time to talk to so-and-so in this time. And so I've got those out there in the future set up, and they'll show up in my inbox. SaneBox,
because I just make calendar
SANEBO.
invite me or calendar message. That's how I post it on a certain date so I can forget about it. But I might have to check that out for an email.
Yeah, my calendar it gets messy when I do that. So I actually have a private calendar that it doesn't show up unless I look at it. So that I handle it that way. But the SaneBox thing, I always look at my email. So it always comes up to the top of the email. And you just basically send it to, whatever it is, some address like, July 10th at sanebox.com. And then I send the message and it'll come back to me and say, hey, July 10th is here. Here's what you said.
That's
so
legit.
It's kind of nice. Yeah, it really works well. And you can snooze it and you can do all kinds of stuff. So it's basically just like a calendar invite, but it shows up in your email instead.
I wrote that as a note down, but I still mostly run off of sticky notes. But then again, I'm the type of guy to make sure that the entire 8.5 by 11 is maximized. So
I have like my whole computer, like desk area is all got stickies, which the green screen keeps right. I'm in that same boat. One of the other things that it reminded me of as you were talking about that I am not good at doing, but I think it would fit to any kind of, but it's so huge. And I wish I was better at it personally, but I've had a couple people that will have sent me something during this time. I have a friend that sent me just this little pocket thing that she said, I thought of you when I saw it and sent it. It wasn't anything major. It wasn't anything big, right? But those little things, like if I can't get that in-person interaction, it's right there. I just can't get it off the screen. I keep it. It's got mementos on the things. And I wish I was better at that kind of stuff, because I think a lot of times I associate connection with just that conversation when all it has to be is I'm thinking of you, right? And I want to try and get better doing some of those little things. So I got these dolls, and they're hard to show up on the screen right here. But apparently the whole purpose of these dolls are called damn it dolls. And so when you're having a moment, you just go, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. And you put the doll on the thing. And I bought several of them. And I plan to send them out to people. But even just that, for me.
For the last time, no.
Right? But even in that moment, if I'm that frustrated and feeling lonely, right? As Peter, you were highlighting, feeling lonely and feeling frustrated. And if I was going, whacking this thing, right? And somebody had got it for me, it's kind of that, I'm not in this alone, right? And so
I know too much about you. It's like I'm laughing so hard inside because I'm like, I know so much about your frustrations.
That thing's going to the conferences with me. I'm telling you right now.
Too many things that I've experienced with you that cannot be unseen that are coming back to me right now. So
that's not for this live.
I think there's another part of connection too that we have to discuss, and that is keeping companies connected to their employees. because even though they work, they're not connected in the way they were. They're not showing up at a place. And so you both, I won't say where it is, but you both know that my middle daughter works at a major fast food company in their IT world. And they, on a quarterly basis, have been sending little care packages to their employees, and you know how funny that company can be. So it's always all this little funky stuff, and she loves it. And it just reminds her how good her employer is.
Yeah.
And it probably costs them $10, and
If I
but
could
it's just incredible.
If I could second that, I think for those who are, because I know that Trisha has a lot of people who are leaders in companies, that if you're in that position, like that would be my big thing out of this is spend a little bit of money and create those care packages. It's not that expensive, and that outreach and touching that person, if, you send them a goodie basket or whatever. There's so many things that you could give for so relatively cheap, pennies on the dollar, right? It really can help connect the people to a company that cares, not just about who they are, but about their well-being. And you can write personalized cards too. It's like, hey, how you doing? Like, how can we help? I mean, and what's so fascinating is like everything that comes into my mind that you would add as a questions to like care package is the questions that Agile coaches ask their teams anyway, right? It's like the caring questions, how are you doing? How can I help? How can I unblock you? What's missing here, right? These types of things. So, I mean, Agile, if you're an Agile coach, you're in the Scrum Master world, you're in the Scrum and Agile world, like a lot of this should come, I would hope, relatively naturally to you. But man, care packages, I second that, Bob. Big ups.
Well,
The last one that they sent, they had something that was really funny in it, and in their Slack channel is them doing really weird stuff with that thing that was funny. So they're just all sharing what they did with this weird little thing.
Experience, right? It's a different
exactly.
Is you're all doing it together. Somebody bought a bunch of these like little things, and they sent them out to all of us as like their little explode. But we all got to be on Zoom together from all over the place and shoot these off together at the same time. And just those little different connections. It doesn't always have to be these grandiose, I have to spend 2 hours to talk with it. But it is important. And even someone that is extroverted and connection oriented as I am, have struggled to stay as connected. Like even with the two of you, I have not reached out as much as I could or should, right? And yet I think that's the other part of that I want to end this with is like giving some grace, because here's the reality is I've talked to Bob a little bit more recent than Peter recently, but like the fact of the matter is good, deep connections don't have to talk every single day. And so give yourself some grace if you're not trying to contact every single person at all times, because we can get right back on a call and feel like nothing's changed and be super comfortable and be willing to share anything and to trust a little bit of those connections that they're still going to be there when they're needed. And I think that's one of the other things that for myself, I've had to give myself a little bit of grace in terms of if I'm not talking to everybody as often, that's not communicating more than I really mean for it to communicate either. And with that. So thank you too. I feel like I want to do this again. Selfishly. So I might be looking of building this, but regardless, I appreciate you two jumping on board with me and chatting about this today. For things coming up, again, I don't have a lot of public stuff coming up that nothing this month, no publics this month, I'm sorry, but I do have an advanced CSM focused on facilitation next month, May 9th and 10th. And then our next coaching, leading amazing teams for coaching skills with Jake Calabrese is June 22nd. We will not be doing another one for a while, or for at least another quarter. So definitely get on either of those if you're interested. Do either of you have something that's coming up in this month because since I have nothing public this month, do you have something?
You know what, Trisha, this is your deal. So we'll just
No. Do you have something public?
No, I'm going to be completely honest with the audience and say, if they want an advanced certified Scrum Master certification, they should absolutely sign up for your course, because as far as facilitation goes, they're not going to find a better person in the entire world to help them with that. So May 9th and 10th, be in her class.
That would be
cry at the end of this.
That would be my.
It's absolutely 100% true, Trisha. And You may not feel that way, but everybody who knows you knows that what I just said is true.
And if I can be even more technically accurate, Bob and I's ACSM that we run, the framework a lot was built off the time that we spent with you and my time that I spent with you in your classes. So let's just be honest. The OG is sitting in the middle of us. At least that's the way it's partitioned in my view. Yeah, go to Trisha's class. You'll have a great time. You'll have a great time. You know you will. Thanks.
Now I'm really inviting you both back. Okay. With that, we'll see you till next month.